Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sebastian Smoliński, and I'm a film critic working and living in Poland. Since January until the beginning of April, I was in Ohio, in Cleveland. I was teaching Polish film, history of Polish film at Cleveland State University. Actually, I'm still teaching. I'm finishing that class under these difficult circumstances. As everyone else, I'm working online. So I'm speaking to you from Warsaw. So I'm very close to my countrymen and to filmmakers from Poland right now, physically and mentally as well, I think. I'm really thrilled that you are going to watch Corpus Christi, which is certainly the most important Polish movie of the last year. So Corpus Christi is the third feature film by Jan Komasa, one of the most important directors of young generation. This is his third movie, and certainly the legend, precedes this movie because it was Oscar nominated. We kept fingers crossed for this movie during the February ceremony. It didn't win. But if you have to beat up Parasite, it's very, very difficult. But still, I think this movie is certainly worth watching because of many reasons. One of them is that Jan Komasa is, at least in Poland, he's sometimes described as a heir to Andrzej Wajda, somebody who also is able to tackle national topics and translate them into convincing narratives. And I think this comparison is a good one. It's certainly, you can see that in his films. His first film, Suicide Room, was about a teenager who is so into virtual life that he actually stops communicating with his parents. He's closed in his own room, and he's into this virtual life, creating his new persona and stuff like that. So this movie was really universal in a way. You could, of course, say that Suicide Room was about Komasa's generation, so 20-somethings at the time. So Komasa is from that generation, which you can see in his movies, because his movies are to a large extent inspired by pop culture, for example, by American pop culture. And you could see that in his second film, Warsaw 44, or City 44, depends on the American translation. It was a movie about Warsaw Uprising, so a very bloody uprising against Germans in 1944 in Warsaw, where I'm speaking right now. Still a topic much discussed in Poland because of how we should press into our independence. Should we have began that uprising in 1944, which was hopeless event. It couldn't be won, and everyone knew that, but Poles wanted to fight a lot. So there is this distinction between those who look at this event from a rational point of view and those who stress that romantic tradition and the need of Poles to fight for independence was crucial at the time. And of course, Andrzej Wajda, our Oscar-winning filmmaker, Andrzej Wajda made a movie about Warsaw Uprising in 1950s, The Canal, a very important film and pretty influential in Polish cinema as well, a winner of one of the awards in Cannes. And 50-something years later, Jan Komasa did a very spectacular World War II movie, which focused on young people who wanted to, who took part in this uprising, and he shows this multi-protagonist, we could say, narrative that tells about their life and about their tragic war stories. That was the first film that really, could give you the impression that Komasa will be one of these, let's say, national filmmakers tackling national topics, but with a universal flair to it, with a more international style as well, visual style, very dynamic, very well executed, very well directed, well staged. And certainly in Poland it was a very important film, but his third movie, which is the one you're about to watch, Corpus Christi, is certainly even more important in this way that it really goes right into the current debates about Poland. Poland is a pretty polarized country nowadays, not unlike United States, I would say. So there are forces, progressive forces and very conservative forces clashing with each other here. And if you've heard that, the third highest grossing Polish movie after we regained independence in 1989, so after we became a free market democratic country, when we get rid of communists, let's say, in Poland, and we had democratic government, so also this free market film industry, So the third highest grossing movie was Clergy by Wojciech Smarzowski, which heavily criticized Catholic Church and showed priests as pedophiles and very greedy men who live luxurious lives. So it was a very important movie, much anticipated by the audience who wanted to finally see the scenes of the church on a big screen. And it was a brave on Smarzowski's part to do this movie because Catholic Church has a unique status in Poland, maybe a bit like in Italy or Spain. Poland is still predominantly Catholic, although of course these people who live in big cities, many of them are not practicing. So there is, this cultural clash between the church and the forces of progression, between the leftists in Poland or more liberal-minded people and those who still believe that the church is the source of knowledge. So this movie, Corpus Christi, looks at the other side. So, just remember that Clergy was super anti-Catholic, and it was very, very successful in Poland and in some other countries. And now comes Corpus Christi, which tells the story of this young man who just went out of prison, and he wants to assume a new identity. He wants to be a priest. And he's told that because of his criminal records, he cannot be one. So he can just fake it. And if you remember Chaplin's Pilgrim, from 1920s, so his comedy about an ex-convict who becomes a pilgrim, that's certainly one association that you can think about when it comes to film history. But this story is grounded in real events. Mateusz Pacewicz, the very young screenwriter, before his 30s, who wrote this movie, before wrote a piece of nonfiction that tackled this topic and that told about different stories like that happened in Poland, about people assuming the identity of priests, and he based this fictional narrative, Corpus Christi, on that. And this movie, as you will see, shows him as this kind of much needed figure in the small community. It's a movie about rural Poland. It's full of empathy, I would say, which is not a quality that is such a widespread among Polish directors, who very often look upon villagers or people from small communities, who look at them from this privileged perspective, patronizing upon them. So I think it doesn't happen in this movie, and it's pretty interesting in the way it kind of tries to, navigate between traditional Poland, Catholic community, and new modern Poland, and this question if you really have to be a real qualified priest to bring something good to the community you live in. So these are the questions that this movie poses, and I think it was very well received here also because it's somewhere in between. So Komasa is a director who's somewhere in between, not because he's hypocritical and he wants to eat cake and have a cake, but he has this point of view that subverting the idea of Catholic Church by showing that Catholic Mass, for example, is a performance. You will see that in the movie, but also by saying that Church has a vital role in Polish life. So you have this conservative/progressive movie, which is very well edited as well by Przemysław Ruścielewski, very talented young Polish editor, very well shot by Piotr Sobociński Jr., so the son of the cinematographer of Kieślowski's Red from 1990s, and also the thing I still did not mention, which is maybe the most important, and that will be the end of my introduction, is Bartosz Bielenia, so the young actor who stars in the main part, who's really magnetizing. You just cannot take your eyes off him. So that's Bartosz Bielenia, and you will see him. It's breakthrough performance, and it's really wonderful to discover new Polish actors in movies. So I hope you will enjoy this movie, and maybe see you some other time in this virtual cinema.